Well, all right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you all, no matter where you are in the world. If you're here live, I'm great. It's glad to have you. That you're here. If you're catching this recording on our Vimeo channel after the fact, then hopefully you find it worthwhile as well as those online. We got a lot to cover today, so let's go ahead and jump in. So welcome to our presentation on moving to System Center Configuration Manager. This is part two in a two-part series on Configuration Manager. Just a couple days ago on Tuesday, we did a part one, which was covering what's new in Configuration Manager, this new release of the product that Microsoft just came out with. And in that, oops, I noticed on my slides it says Tuesday, February 11th. It's obviously Thursday, February 11th, but anyway, in that webinar we did on Tuesday, what I tried to do was show you the cool reasons, cool features in the product that might incent you to want to move to this latest release of the product. So what I'm going to do today is, now that you've decided after watching Tuesday's webinar that you do want to move to Configuration Manager, how do you get there? So we'll talk about the migration process as well as the upgrade process and so on. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Wally Mead. I'm a product owner, principal program manager with Cyrus. Been with Cyrus for almost 2 years now after spending 22 years at Microsoft, primarily in the systems management server and configuration manager product group. My email address is on the slide, as well as our main address for Cyrus and our website, cyruson.com. So let's go ahead, and my quick little agenda, just a couple of minutes on who Cyruson is as a company. And then we'll jump into the meat of today's presentation, which is going to be covering how do you get to this new release of Configuration Manager. As we go through the webinar, if you have any questions, please feel free to log them or note them into the Q&A panel. I won't be addressing them throughout the presentation, otherwise I'll get distracted and you don't want that. So I'll cover all those at the end of our time today. But please do feel free to log those in. If you do create questions throughout the presentation, try and put a little context in around it, because I won't be answering them for an hour. And by then the context may have slipped from mind as to where you're asking this question at. But please do feel free to ask questions. So we'll talk about migration to Configuration Manager, upgrading the Configuration Manager. Then I'll spend a couple of minutes talking about this updates and servicing feature that I introduced to you on Tuesday and how that will be used to keep Configuration Manager up to date. So first off, a couple of minutes on Cyruson, the company I work for. So we are a system center company. Been around for a few years, almost 4 years now, working as experts in the system center space. So what we try and do is help you standardize, automate, and transform your environments to get the most value you can out of your system center implementation, no matter which one of the products in that system center suite. I'm obviously going to be talking about Configuration Manager today, but we also do a lot of expertise in Service Manager and the other products. So here are the 5 pillars that Cyruson stands behind. The first 3 pillars are products, as we'll see in a couple more slides, and we look at our product offerings real quick, around service management, asset management, identity management, which is password reset right now. I did a 5-part webinar series last year on asset management, taking Configuration Manager data from the ConfigMan database, pulling it over into the Service Manager database, and allowing you to extend and enhance that data to give you true lifecycle management of your hardware and software assets. The 4th pillar there is on our consulting services. So we do have a large team of consultants that can help you out with all of your needs around System Center, specifically focusing on our product technologies, but also very, very well versed in the rest of the System Center product areas as well. And then the 5th area is the partner and community enablement team, the PACE team, which is what I'm part of. We help go around and spread the knowledge around System Center and help our customers and partners with knowledge around our products as well as System Center itself. Just try and help out in the community as much as we can. The Cyrus Platform, I'll build this out for you. As you can see, we're sitting at the top of the stack. So for the most part, the products that Cyruson offers sit on top of System Center and rely on System Center, with one exception, that being the password reset product that I'll talk about in the next slide. System Center as a product technology is fantastic as the engine, and we help enhance and provide extra capabilities that may not be available to you in the core product itself. And System Center can be run in an on-premise or an online cloud Azure-based environment. Our technology obviously sits on top of System Center, so our product-wise, we don't care whether you're in an online mode or you're in an on-premises mode. You may find some benefits for redundancy and security and maintainability and so on in a cloud-based environment, but if you want on-premise, that's fantastic. But we do sit on top of that System Center stack, has a great engine, provides great capabilities to you. And lastly, the Cyrus Platform. So as I mentioned, we work a lot around Service Manager, and that's what the vast majority of these streams, as we call them, in the Business Management Solution Suite provide to you. Essentials Management would give you some core console additions for Service Manager to make the analyst and administrator job easier to do their work with Service Manager. Service Management extends some of those apps and gives you more capabilities, plus a self-service and analyst portal that are not in the native product. So more of a end user focus and analyst focused portal that's web agnostic, browser agnostic, device, runs anywhere on any platform. HTML5 based, very nice platform for the portal. Asset management, as I mentioned, allows you to take configuration manager data or asset Active Directory data or operations manager data, or import your own data from your other sources and provide you the ability of adding licensing data, financial data, contractual data, technical business data along with your assets to give them better ability of being utilized for your management needs in tracking your assets. Identity management is a new stream for us, and it provides right now the password reset technology, which integrates with Active Directory to help end users reset their passwords on their own through a challenge response system, key token system, as opposed to them having to interact with help desk, which is a fairly costly endeavor and used quite often. Coming soon, we'll have a service automation stream to help you with your taking some of those day-to-day redundant activities and automate those and make them a lot easier to get taken care of and reduce some of the time and cost involved with those, with some new connectors coming up. And then free community apps. For example, the Remote Manage app that I've talked about before in a webinar a year plus ago, and I did mention on Tuesday. That's a free community app that you go and download and start taking advantage of today in a configuration manager environment. Very, very worthwhile application. And we'll be having some new community apps coming out in the configuration manager space shortly. All right, so let's jump into today's topic. If you were with me on Tuesday for the What's New webinar, I did talk about this already, but we may have some new people here, so I want to take a moment just to make sure that everybody's aware of the product name, because it is a little bit confusing. So you might have heard of the product called Configuration Manager 2016, which is absolutely incorrect. The official name of the product is System Center Configuration Manager. No version, no product, no date or anything like that on it, it's just System Center Configuration Manager. Now, because of the fact that there's a lot of different versions of Configuration Manager out there, and just saying Configuration Manager is kind of a, what do you mean? A lot of people, including some of the product documentation that you see up on TechNet now, are starting to add references to current branch after Configuration Manager. So they'll say, this applies to Configuration Manager, current branch. Some people are also referring to the current product version, which is 15.11, but that is going to be changing very shortly. As we'll talk about, because the product is going to be evolving over time, and there'll be a new update for Configuration Manager coming out that will change the version from 15.11 to something obviously later than that. So just when you're out there on the forums or out in the community trying to get help or offer help, just make sure you're very specific with the version of the product you're working with. Configuration Manager 2007 Service Pack 2, great. Configuration Manager 2012 R2 Service Pack 1, great. Just saying Configuration Manager, hopefully now people will understand you mean this new release of their product, but you might also say current branch, you might say 15.11 or whatever your version happens to be at that point in time. All right, so now let's go ahead and jump into the product upgrade scenario. So just one slide, I think I showed this on Tuesday, at how to get to Configuration Manager, and then I'll delve into the details in upcoming slides. So your upgrade migration scenarios. You can perform an in-place upgrade from Configuration Manager 2012 Service Pack 1 or Service Pack 2, as well as Configuration Manager 2012 R2 as well as ConfigMan 2012 R2 SP1. So in essence, you can do an in-place upgrade from all versions of Configuration Manager 2012, with the exception of the RTM release. That was the initial release of the 2012 platform. So you have to be on one of the service packs or R2. So in-place upgrade, obviously a great way to go. It's nice and easy. You don't have to stand up new architecture, a new site environment. You don't have to change your site code. Just run setup on top of the existing environment you have, which is what I'm going to show you today, along with a lot of the little gotchas and things to watch for and how to prep for it. Migration. So if you're one of those customers still out there running on ConfigMan 2007 Service Pack 2, and it doesn't matter whether you're R2 or R3 on top of that or not. It's just the ConfigMan 2007 SP2. You cannot perform an in-place upgrade. You will have to perform a side-by-side migration. However, you can migrate from ConfigMan 2007 Service Pack 2 directly to System Center Configuration Manager. You don't have to go to the 2012 release in between. You will also be able to perform a side-by-side migration from ConfigMan 2012 Service Pack 2 as well as ConfigMan 2012 R2 Service Pack 1. So if you want to perform that side-by-side migration, for example, you want to change your server operating system or change your SQL Server version or change hardware, it's time for hardware upgrade, then maybe you want to perform a side-by-side upgrade. And you can do that from the latest service pack of Configuration Manager 2012. That's the only release that's tested is that latest service pack, which is SP2 and R2 SP1. But you can do that upgrade or that side-by-side migration from there if you wish. A point of note here, in all Configuration Manager releases now, you'll have to have the original release of the Windows 10 ADK. So right now there's an issue with the second release of the Windows 10 ADK, so you want the original release to make sure that you're in a supported scenario. And you will be required to have that in order to do your install/upgrade. Okay, so now let's talk about migration specifically. As mentioned, there's no in-place upgrade support from ConfigMan 2007, and that's the same scenario that was out there when you tried to go from 2007 to 2012. You were not allowed to do an in-place upgrade. You had to stand up a brand new architecture and do your side-by-side migration. Exactly the same, just that now you're going from ConfigMan 2007 to the new release of Configuration Manager. Again, you can skip 2012. Migration will be supported from Configuration Manager 2007 SP2, as well as ConfigMan 2012 SP2 or 2012 R2 SP1. I personally think that you should do an in-place upgrade as opposed to a side-by-side migration if you're on the 2012 platform. However, if you want to do your hardware swap at the time of your upgrade, then it can make sense to do a side-by-side migration. Some people also just like to feel like they got a cleaner environment by doing side-by-side, so you're welcome to do that with that migration scenario. It just has to be the latest service pack of ConfigMan 2012. At the very bottom is a note that you can also migrate from Configuration Manager to Configuration Manager, which means that you can be on Configuration Manager current branch 1511 and you can migrate to a current branch 1511 environment, which is really good for a lab to production migration scenario. So you've got your production environment stand up and running. You've got a lab environment stood up and running, so you can do all your testing, you model all your applications, create your collections, create all your rules, whatever it happens to be. And instead of recreating them in production, you can just migrate them from your lab environment over to your production environment. A great way of maintaining that consistency and not having to recreate things, because you always forget something once you test it out in a lab environment, you had to make some change to make it work. You forget that when you go to production, and then it doesn't work right away, and you have to go back and figure out what switch you missed. So just a lab to production migration is a great thing to do. Okay, there's a slide in here for a demo. However, in lieu of time, I'm not going to perform a demo of a migration. I did a webinar about a year ago now on migrating from ConfigMan 2007 to ConfigMan 2012, and the process is exactly the same. So if you want to see how to perform that, go up to our Vimeo channel, vimeo.com/Team Cyruson, and you can search for that migration webinar and I walk through for a full hour how you prepare for and how you perform a migration process. And it's the exact same process. So and just because I know the timing on this one, it's going to take a while to get through everything, I'm going to skip that and just point you to that webinar. Okay, now let's go ahead and concentrate on our topic for today, which is going to be an in-place upgrade. So first off, to be aware of, there are some site system software changes in the new configuration manager. So there are some older operating systems and SQL Server versions that are no longer supported. As of the new release of Configuration Manager, your site infrastructure will not run on anything less than Windows Server 2008. So you can have Windows Server 2008, Windows Server 2008 R2, Windows Server 2012, and Windows Server 2012 R2 are supported as site system roles. So all of your site systems have to be running one of those 4 operating systems. Now note the bullet below that, Windows Server 2008 and Windows Server 2008 R2 support will end, I state at the end of this calendar year 2016, but it might actually be a little bit later than that. But just realistically think to yourself that you got to get off Windows Server 2008 as a site system platform in this calendar year. So if you're there right now, you need to get off that sometime in this next year or so. Now, Windows Server 2016 is not supported yet because that product is not out. When that product does get released as a RTM product, then the configuration manager team will do its appropriate testing and validation, come out with support for Windows Server 2016 as a site system platform as well. SQL Server. So the SQL Server versions are SQL 2008 R2 Service Pack 3, SQL 2012 Service Pack 2, and SQL 2014 SP1 are supported for your site database environment. And then again, note that SQL Server 2008 R2 support will end again at the end of this calendar year. So you've got about another almost a year of life left in your 2008 platforms, Windows Server 2008, SQL Server 2008 R2, before you need to get off of those so that your environment is in a supported scenario. Secondary sites can have a little bit different SQL Server versions. They can use SQL Express editions if you want to. Now I put a link in here and you guys can get these slides or the recording later on because this webinar is being recorded. And that link is to the TechNet documentation for deprecated features. So we'll talk about the operating systems and SQL Server versions that are being dropped from support or have already been dropped from support, like Windows XP and Windows Vista for client operating systems. And it tells you if they're supported now, when they will be dropped, if the product group has announced future plans to drop that support. That's where the 2008 releases state the first release after the end of the calendar year. All right, so once you've got past that, so the general upgrade process. And if you didn't see that webinar I did a year ago, along with that migration webinar, I did an upgrade webinar. I talked about this process. I've changed it a little bit to add a couple of additional things in here for you to make things hopefully a little bit easier. So verify your software versions are supported. Obviously, that means if you have distribution points still running on Windows Server 2003, you need to get off that. So again, it's Windows Server 2008 is your minimum platform. Then verify your current environment is functioning properly before you try and upgrade. You don't want to have issues in your current environment and perform an upgrade and just expect that upgrade is going to solve those issues that you have. You want to have a clean, working, efficient environment before you do your upgrades so that you don't cause additional problems. So things that you would do: verify your site systems are healthy. Verify your component, and I'll show you all these in a demo here in just a moment. Verify your component status is okay. And I'll talk about that more as I show you. I just want to get these couple of slides done, then kick over to our demo, and I'll walk you through these things and talk a little bit more about those. So verify your components are all reporting good status. Verify that you don't have any inbox backlogs. Inbox backlogs are oftentimes an indication that you have some sort of an issue in your environment, which you obviously don't want. Make sure that all your clients are communicating properly so that your client activity status, your client health rate, are all within your normal functioning ranges for your environment. Make sure that you're getting Deployment status updates. So if you have active deployments going on of some application or package program or software updates, whatever it is, that your compliance percentage is improving on a daily basis. So just making sure that environment is working great or as expected. Once you've done that, you want to do your backups. You always want to do a backup before you start any kind of an upgrade installation type process. A couple things you have to do to prepare your environment for this upgrade. Now, most of you may not have to do anything here, but a few of you are going to have to. You have to remove any management point replicas. So if you have any management points that are utilizing a SQL replica to query as opposed to the site database directly, you'll have to remove those SQL replicas on those management points. So just convert those management points to using the site database directly. You'll have to remove the out-of-band service point and system health validator roles. Those roles are no longer supported in Configuration Manager, so you need to remove those roles if you happen to have them in your ConfigMan 2012 environment. If you have any software update points that are running behind network load balancing scenarios, you'll need to remove the network load balancing, the NLBs, and just make them standalone software update points. The next one says to disable maintenance tasks, and I'm not going to necessarily say you need to disable your maintenance tasks. You just need to make sure that you're not having those site maintenance tasks go in there and doing any performing or grooming, pruning of your database while you're going through the process of upgrading your site. Because in an upgrade process, you're going to be modifying your database and doing the upgrade of it. So you don't want to have database maintenance happening at the same time you're trying to do your upgrade. So those tasks normally are scheduled to run between midnight and 5 a.m. If you've left all those tasks at those schedules and you're not going to be doing your upgrade between midnight and 5 a.m., you're probably fine. If you have modified the timing of those tasks so they're performed during some other time frame when you might be running your upgrade process, then yes, go ahead and disable those tasks. You don't have competing things going on in your site database. Then you want to run prereq check, and I'm going to show you that momentarily. You'll want to run a test DB upgrade, and I'll show you how to do that. And then you start your upgrade from the top down. So let's go ahead and jump over and show you how to perform some of those things. All right, so here's my environment. I'll zoom in here, and you guys can see that I'm running R2 Service Pack 1. So it's build number 8239. And again, this could be 2012 SP1 or SP2, or just R2 without Service Pack 1 as a supported scenario. And I have a few clients here. A couple of them are upgraded to R2 SP1, and the other 3 clients are still at the R2 release. I've not upgraded those. All right, so what you would do is go to the monitoring workspace, you would go to system status, go to site status, and just verify your status and your icon is all good. In this case, I got the green circles, white check marks, an OK status. My site system health looks great. Go to component status, and you would go and just cruise through all of your components and just verify you don't have any warnings or errors. Now, I happen to have some down at the bottom, and you would want to now look at those messages and see, are those things that are normal for my environment? Now, I can tell you these bottom 2 just off the top of my head. I can tell you these guys, this WSUS Sync Manager, my virtual environment here is not connected to the internet. So obviously my software update point can't connect to Microsoft Update to check for new catalog. So that's expected. Database notification monitor service. That one is expected because of the fact that those maintenance tasks are scheduled to run between midnight and 5 a.m. My site was not turned on running at midnight, between midnight and 5 a.m. So it just created a bunch of messages, probably 17 of them saying, hey, I was supposed to run this task and I couldn't run the task. Software metering, it was scheduled to run a summarization process, and again, it couldn't because the site was down. So I know what all these warnings are, so I think I'm good. It's working within my normal expected parameters, but just verify that you know why you're having any kind of non-OK status there for your environment. Okay, next thing I would do is I'd want to go check for inbox backlogs. So here I am. You can see that I'm in a did a command prompt, and I'm just going to go to, I'm sitting in the Configuration Manager inboxes folder, and I'm just going to do a dir/s pipe that to a text file, inboxes.txt, and that file has been created. And all I'll do is go to that text file, just open it up in Notepad, and all I'm going to do is look through my inboxes and see if there's any large accumulation of files sitting anywhere. Hopefully not. And if there is one, then likely, or there are any, likely they're going to be indications that you have a backlog, which means that there is some sort of an issue going on. So common areas where you'd want to look would be in this path here, Microsoft Configuration Manager inbox is off, and that's where all this type of data is sent to. This is generally data from your clients. So hardware inventory files, discovery records, software inventory, which you shouldn't be using, state messages. So and there'll be obviously subfolders for each of these, and you just go through and look at each of those folders to see if you got any backlogs of client data. That could be an indication that, yeah, I've got some issues going on. Now here you can see in bad miss is one place you might find some backlogs. I've had some delta mismatches. I've had some inventory files sent saying missing system class. No files because ConfigMan cleans those up automatically every 2 weeks. But it tells you I have had those in the past. Another place that you would look would be in your, I have to go past all these auth directories, is right in here in your CCR area. So CCR box, and more appropriately, CCR retry box. CCRs are created for client push requests. So if you're trying to install clients, the site server will process 10 of those requests at a time. Any more than that, they'll just sit in the queue here. Those that are being processed are sitting in the in process box. And then if you have errors, they go into the retry box. So that could indicate clients not online or firewall issues or whatever, just again, things to look for. And then one other area that's fairly common to have a backlog is going to be down towards the bottom, almost there. Site stat, there we go, stat manager.box. So stat manager.box is for your status messages. And I've seen cases where I've seen backlogs of messages inside future queue. That will happen if clients have clocks that are ahead of the site server's clock. The site server is not going to process a status message till the site server's clock catches up to the timestamp in that message that came from a client or another remote site system. Another place I've seen backlogs has been in the queue folder, and that's oftentimes, if you go look in that folder, you'll see a bunch of files there, sort them by date and time, and you'll find one is a really, really old file. And then just delete that really old one, and the rest of them probably just start flowing away because it gets clogged or blocked on a corrupt status message. Anyway, just look for backlogs. Then what I would tell you to do is start a prereq check. So what I've done here is I've already downloaded the new Configuration Manager product. I'm sitting in the SMS setup bin x64 folder, and I'm just going to run prereq check. Now that's going to go ahead and kick off the prereq checker that is part of setup. I recommend running this manually outside of setup because it may catch some things and save you some time without having to walk all the way through setup. Prereq check bombs on you. Oh, you can't do something. And then you have to exit setup, install something, and maybe restart something else, reboot the computer. So here you can see I've got some errors because I don't have Windows 10 ADK installed. So what I need to do is I need to go in here and install the Windows 10 ADK. So I've got that code sitting right here. I've downloaded it already. I'm just going to run ADK setup from the Windows 10 release. And this is the original release for the Windows 10 ADK. And I'll verify, get rid of the proper ones here. A couple times I missed that one, bottom one. So normally we've told you in the past that you need to have these two and USMT enabled. I have also selected ICD, the Imaging Configuration Designer. That's used in a couple of different places optionally in Configuration Manager now. So you may want to include that. It's not that big, so but you certainly need to have deployment tools, WinPE, and user state migration tool selected. And let me go ahead and click install so that gets installing, as you can see in my prereq checker. So the prereq checker flagged an error on USMT WinPE, or deployment tools, and WinPE. Those are the three required ones. The ICD is required if you want to like do a bulk enrollment of Windows 10 devices with on-prem MDM solution, as I talked about on Tuesday. So that's going to go ahead and take care of those prereq checks issues. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel that. Now the next thing you should, and let this go ahead and run. The next thing you would do is perform a test DB upgrade. So if I go back to my install source, SMS setup, bin x64, I'll zoom in here in just a minute for you. I would run setup / test DB upgrade. So you would run this command here. So from your install source, the 64-bit source, you'd run setup with the switch test DB upgrade on your database. Now you cannot run this command on your site database server. So a SQL server that's hosting a active config man site database. So what you do is you perform a backup of your site database in SQL, take that backup over to another SQL server computer, restore the database there. In this case, I put in CM_CIR, that'd be my database name, but whatever you call it. And then you take your, in this case, the configuration manager current branch 1511 binaries over to that SQL server, and you run this command. And that's actually going to perform an upgrade of your database. Going to perform an upgrade of your database to this new release, configuration manager current branch 1511. And the reason this is really important is one of my TAP customers many, many years ago, they didn't have this command in the setup code yet, and we performed an upgrade to a Service Pack 1 release, and it bombed on them. And we looked at the log file, smssetup.log, and it said there was invalid data. And what they had used was some no ID MIFs to add custom data to their database. So we went ahead and had to restore their database from backup, use the utility called del group to remove that custom data, and the upgrade worked fine. Same thing happened when we went from SP1 to SP2 because they re-added that no ID MIF. So then we got the product group to add this test DB upgrade switch. They would run this on a backup copy of their database, find out if they had that incompatible data in their database, remove it prior to even trying an upgrade. That way they never had to go through that restore process. So very, very important thing to do. You can see the 80K setup completed. And now if I try and run this on my site database server, it's going to come back with an error saying, hey, you can't do that because you're on an active site database server. So the SQL server you're trying to run this on is actually hosting a config man site database. So it's got to be a different copy. And the reason for that is this would actually upgrade just your database to this, I'll say VNext, which was the code name for this product, but leave your binaries, the actual server running R2SP1, which would be incompatible releases. So you go and run through that process. So that's something a lot of people don't do, but it is very, very important to perform. Okay, so with that said, let's go ahead and kick off my setup process. I want to show you a couple things there, and then we'll proceed on. So setup is launched off, and we're going to go ahead. Let's kill this command prompt. We'll click install. We'll say next. And notice that I cannot install a brand new site with this. Now, if this was a clean server, I could, but I'm sitting on top of an existing site server, so it won't let me install a new one. I can do what I want to do, which is do an upgrade. So I'm going to go ahead and perform the upgrade option here. Accept the license agreement and the 3 supplemental license agreements for additional components. There are new client components, so you have to have those either downloaded interactively, or I've already downloaded them, put them in my ISO file, so let them process. Let me go ahead and kill this screen as well so it doesn't get in our way. It's going to ask me if I want to add any additional server languages. I'm not going to. Any additional client languages, I'm not going to. Now, with the new version of the product, there's some new information called telemetry data. Your site is going to automatically send some telemetry data, which is called usage data up here in the dialog box, up to Microsoft to let them know what site code you have, what level, what version of your site is, what operating systems you're using, and so on. That's used to help create better products So that data is going to go up, and it tells you here there are 3 different levels of telemetry data that you can use: basic, enhanced, or full. It defaults to enhanced, which is the middle mode. There is a documentation right here that talks about all those different levels and all the data that gets sent up to the Microsoft with those different telemetry settings. All the data is hashed, so you can't really see anything of importance. It's all hashed data. Then you might see a version like 5.00.8325.1000, which is my build number of Configuration Manager. But you can go ahead and view that information online, and then it's going to go ahead and let you change this level after you've got your site installed, but it's going to default to the enhanced mode. Okay, now how that data gets up to your environment is through a new site system role called the service connection point. So a service connection point, it does require internet access, so it's asking you at the time of setup, do you want to create a service connection point right now? And if so, what computer do you want to have that on? Or no, I'll go ahead and figure that out later on. So I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, create the service connection point and leave it on my site server. It does not have to be on your site server, just a computer that meets the requirements of a site system and has internet access. Nothing else as far as summary, and then it's going to run the prereq check. And in this case, the prereq check is going to run, and it's going to pass without any errors. It's going to have warnings for those 2 SQL memory configuration issues that we saw earlier. I didn't explain them to you, but they'll pop up here. But you're not seeing the 380K10 issues that we did happen to see before. And these 2 SQL memory issues, one of them is stating that I've got SQL Server still left at unlimited memory growth, which is not a good thing to do in a co-located scenario because SQL can starve the rest of the environment. And then the other one says I don't have SQL configured for a starting memory of 8 gigabytes because my VM only has 6 gig total. So you're supposed to have 8 gig as a minimum amount for SQL memory, and then up to around 75% of your max RAM in the box as a top end. And I don't have either of those set. So I'll click Begin Install. Now we're not going to sit here for an hour and a half and watch upgrade work. What I'm going to do is let this run just for a couple of minutes here talking about something. I'm going to then reset to a different set of snapshot images where I did let this complete, and then we'll use those to complete the webinar. But I want to get something showing something additional. There we go. Okay, so I'll zoom in here and talk about a couple things momentarily. So notice that right now it says overall progress. It has a list of tasks, which right now is just one task, but it will be multiple different tasks there. It's got a timer over here in the upper right-hand corner, 24 seconds, and next button is not available. So eventually, and in my case with my hard drive or my laptop I'm running this on, it's about 23, 24 minutes. Up here, this stops and says core setup has completed. My timer stops, and then the next button becomes illuminated. However, a number of tasks sitting in here don't have this icon on it. They don't have that OK icon. They've got the blue circle that's indicating in progress. So what I'm going to tell you to do, even though the next button becomes available to you, is to not click next and just leave this sit. Eventually, even though it says core setup completed and it stops clocking, the clock stops running and stuff, it will actually keep monitoring these tasks and it will update them even though it's stopped its counter. So my suggestion to you or recommendation to you is just leave this running until all of your different actions go complete and then go ahead and close. Now there is the view log button here. That works as long as you don't use CM Trace as your default log file viewer. If you do utilize CM Trace as your default log file viewer, this is going to load this is what I wanted to get to right here, is getting another task. I can show you that blue circle indicating in progress. If you use Notepad like I do, I can click the view log file and it'll bring up the config man setup log file. If you have CM Trace, your default log file viewer, there's an issue with the first release of Configuration Manager 15.11, where it tries to upgrade the CM Trace utility, but you've got it utilized because you're viewing the log file and that it stops upgrade. So if you kill CM trace and restart your setup, it'll go ahead and complete, but it's just an issue to be aware of. So I'm going to go ahead and kill my images right now, apply a snapshot with my site that's already been upgraded where I let this complete, and then we'll use that to complete the rest of our webinar. So bear with me for one moment. I'm going to go over here and have to load Hyper-V Manager. I'm going to go now switch to a snapshot with my site that's been upgraded. Because again, it's going to take it over an hour for this installation to complete, and we don't want to sit there because it's kind of boring just watching the items change there. And my domain controller, let's go, and he's ready for upgrade. And we'll do that. And I'll be done talking on this and get these guys loaded here, and we'll kick it back over to slides. So let's get our domain controller started. And then we'll start my site server. And then we're also going to start a client computer. And since the vast majority of you have Windows 7, we'll start that as a client. So our site server, and then we'll want our Windows 7 client as well. All right, so let's go ahead and get the site server started. And let's tell Windows 7 to start up. All right, we'll let those guys get started up. And now let's go ahead and talk about your upgrade process. So we talked about the flow of the upgrade process. So verify everything's working good, verify your site systems and SQL Server versions are correct. By the way, the prereq checker in an upgrade scenario is not going to catch your SQL Server version or your site system operating system versions. So you're gonna have to do that manually. So do your prereq check, do your test DB upgrade, verify no component issue, no site status issues, no inbox backlogs, verify my clients are communicating. Now, I didn't show you the client activity and client health stuff, but just make sure that your client activity is within your normal operating ranges. Of course, you want to have 100% active clients and you want to have 100% healthy clients. That's unrealistic for the vast majority of people. You're always going to have employees that go on vacation and turn off their computers, or they go to sleep, or you're going to have people on disability or on maternity leave, whatever it happens to be, and so their computer is going to be off for a period of time. So just make sure that your activity levels are within your normal operating ranges. Then, after you've done your upgrade, you want to do some verification. So verify in the config manager setup log file that it indicates setup was completed successfully. And I'll show you that in just a minute here, and I'll talk about what I mean there. Verify your system health is still good after the upgrade. Verify component status is good after the upgrade. And the reason I bring that up is it's very common for you to have additional non-good status because of the upgrade process, because you're shutting down components, you're reinstalling components, one component's trying to talk to another component and can't, so you get a bunch of errors. Verify reports run. So verify your reports run, because I've seen cases where reports won't run after an upgrade. Not specifically to Configuration Manager 1511, current branch, but I've seen it in other upgrade processes. And then we'll come back, let's go kick into those things, and I'll come back and talk about upgrading clients and consoles and so on. Let's go over to our site server, and let me verify it's not on the internet. Yeah, okay, because it slows me down because it tries to download patches. So let's go ahead and log into our environment. Let me go ahead and load Zoom it so that we can zoom in. I don't remember if this image had it in the, hello, zoom it, did it work? Zoom it, come on, there we go. Okay, zoom it's there, we're good to go. All right, so a couple things we want to do is verify your setup log file. So you go to config manager setup log file, and you see this case is the rollover log file. So this one is not really much use to us. So we'll go to the backup log file or the previous version, and I'm going to use Notepad, the best log file viewer ever. And what I want to show you guys here is right at this point in time, it says Configuration Manager primary site upgrade completed. And you can see that was around 1101. That was around 1101 is when it completed that. But notice below it says timed out monitoring, begin monitoring, and you see some stuff's happening almost an hour later. So from the time, that's when that dialog box for setup would have said core setup is completed, the counter stopped, and the next button become available. Look at it, was almost an hour later before it really got done installing the SMS executive, the site component monitor, database notification monitor, a lot of those different services. So that's why I suggest to you leave this running until all those tasks, those actions go complete and okay status in your environment. Now let me go ahead and get my admin console started because that's the next test you would do. I've seen cases where the admin console will not start after an upgrade. It will try and start, but it can't connect to the database. And that's because the admin console didn't get upgraded. My case, it did get upgraded, so I'm good to go. But let me show you what would happen, because I have seen it a number of times. And just for reference, let me go to Help About. And now you see that I'm running System Center Configuration Manager version 15.11, and the build number, where before, remember, it was R2 Service Pack 1, and the build number before was 8329, or 8239, I'm sorry, now it's 8325. So this is the new version of the product. But what you might have seen if your console doesn't start is right up here, it says that your console's installed, it has to be uninstalled. So right here, it has to be deinstalled. Oops, sorry about that. Deinstalled. And I've seen cases where it'll say config man console uninstallation failed to complete. And the reason for that is the fact that it's a race condition. It's done through a Windows installer scenario, and you can only have one Windows installer action happening at a time. So if your console won't connect to your database, and if you look at this log file, it says it could not be uninstalled, which means a new one could be installed, all you would do is go to Control Panel, go to Uninstall a Program, go to your Configuration Manager console, and you would uninstall it. Now, I'm not going to uninstall mine because it is the proper version, but in your case, you would have some other version like 8239 here. You would uninstall your old console. Then you would go to your install folder, in my case, Drive C, Program Files, Microsoft Config Manager, which you guys don't do in production, but in my lab environment is okay. Go to the console setup folder and run console setup.exe. So uninstall the old console and just run console setup.exe to get the new console. And then that will call admin console.msi when it's ready for the actual installation of the console. So the console setup.exe does some prereq stuff and looks for some other components that are required and installs them if necessary. So that's another thing to verify that your console connects it properly. Okay, then we're going to go verify our health. So we go to system status, site status, everything is good. We go to component status. We go look at our components, and I've got two of those same errors on there, database notification monitor and WSUS sync manager. Again, WSUS is, I'm not active on the internet, so obviously can't connect there. And database notification monitor, again, not running between midnight and 5 a.m. But what I would do if I wasn't sure if these were real issues, I would go ahead and add in columns for errors, information, and warnings. And then you can see that in this case, there's 17 warnings for database notification monitor, and that's saying, hey, I couldn't run these tasks, and there's 5 informational messages and so on, and 1 error for WSUS sync manager. If I wasn't positive that these were issues related to the upgrade or real problems, what I would do is I'm going to take the database notification monitor, and I'm going to go ahead and reset counts. I'm going to say reset all. What this does is it zeroes out all those numbers. So it's going to go 0, 0, 0 instead of 0, 5, and 17. It's going to change my icon to the green circle with the white check mark and my status from warning to okay. Then, if it really is a problem, that problem is going to come back. So let me go ahead and refresh. It's probably updated by now. And now we'll see. Yeah, database notification monitor is not there. And let me sort by component name. And there he is. And you see he's got an okay status. And now if it really is an issue, not just related to the upgrade process and services not being running and components not installed and so on, it will come back. So that's a good, easy way of validating that whether you got a real problem or not. Okay. Now you upgrade remote consoles. So this obviously upgraded the console on the site server. You're going to have to upgrade any remote consoles that you had. Oops, report running. I missed that one. So I'll go back there in just a second. I forgot to show you report runs. So upgrade your consoles. Again, just take that console setup and admin console to MSI, package it up, and distribute it to a collection of all your computers that have the console installed, which you can verify through add remove programs as part of hardware inventory. Upgrade any child sites. So if you had a CAS, you're starting this at the top, and then you're working your way down, upgrade your child primary sites. If you're primary with secondary sites, go ahead and upgrade those. There's no real requirement to get them upgraded in any specific time frame, but it's recommended as soon as possible. Then you want to upgrade your clients, and I'll show you a couple different ways of upgrading clients. So let's go kick back over here. Let me go back into full screen mode. Reports. Let me go to reporting. Go to reports, and you can go to any reports you want to. The important thing is just that a report will run. Now, I like to use the report count of configuration manager clients by client version because I'm going to be upgrading clients. So what I've seen here before is when I try and run this, I get back nothing. No errors, no data, no nothing. It's just a blank screen here. And if that happens, that's an indication that this utility right here, same place where your console installer is, report viewer, did not get run successfully. So you just go to the same console setup folder, just double click on report viewer to launch it off, takes 20 seconds to run, and then bingo, your report's gonna, when you try and run it again, it's gonna run your report fine. Here you can see that I have 3 clients that are running R2 RTM. I have 1 client running R2 SP1, and I have 1 client running Configuration Manager, current branch 1511. And that's my site server primary, which is also my management point, which had to be upgraded because it's a component, as well as a client. So it got upgraded automatically. So you're just looking to make sure something comes back in your report. Then that means you're good to go. Okay, now upgrading clients. My site's all good. It's all healthy. I want to get my clients upgraded. A few different ways of doing that. You can upgrade your clients any way you want to. So whatever your preferred method is. A couple different things that are fairly common is software distribution. So you go to packages, create package from definition, take the config manager client upgrade package, import it, always obtain files from a source folder. That source folder is on your site server. It's SMS underscore client. No, it's not. It's SMS underscore, what am I, CIR. And then client. And obviously I misspelled that. Yes, I did. You got to be able to type in order to do much of anything here in this world. There we go. So there's my 32-bit and 64-bit clients. So that's my folder. And create that package from definition. That's this one right here. What I would do is I go to properties. I would change the name of this to something to be unique because there's already one in there called that. I'll say Wally's Configuration Manager Client Upgrade. Go to programs. There's one program. And you see its command line is CCM setup, no service slash no service, SMS site code equals auto. If this was me, I would wipe out everything after CCM setup. So my command line would simply be CCM setup. And the reason I would do that is when you run CCM setup with no command line switches, it always goes to Active Directory to see what you published in Active Directory for your upgrade so that all client installs are exactly the same way. So I would go ahead and do that. And now I would go ahead and deploy this package and program to a collection of clients and verify. So that's a very common way, but you can use software update-based client installs, client push, logon script, startup script, manual, whatever you want. Now, if it was me and if it was my environment, what I would do to upgrade my clients is I would use the automatic client upgrade feature. So I would go to the administration workspace. I would go to site configuration. I would go to the sites node. And I would go to hierarchy settings. And then I would go to the client upgrade tab, which in your guys' current version, I think it's called automatic client update or something like that. You go to client upgrade tab, and I would click this top checkbox, upgrade all clients in my hierarchy using production client. And you can see the build number there is 8325. which is the RTM 1511 build. It says, hey, you're gonna upgrade everybody. Is that what you want to do? You say, okay. And then give it your time frame on what's your deadline for getting all your clients upgraded. And it defaults to 7 days, anywhere from 1 to 31 days. If you're a control freak and you want to make sure that your servers have a little more control on when they get upgraded, you can click the do not upgrade servers. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK and let that process for a moment. Now, while that's processing, let me go here to the little chevron up here at the top, upper left-hand corner, and I'm going to go down to usage data. And here's that usage data that we talked about during setup. So the 3 modes, basic, enhanced, full. This gives you a description as to the type of data that's going to be sent up to your environment, or from your environment up to Microsoft. And it does allow you to change these modes to whatever you want. And there's a link again to get to the product docs about what information is being sent up with all these. So you can go ahead and change that. Okay, so I turned on automatic client upgrade. So what I would do is, let me go over to my client computer. I'll go to my domain controller and we'll log in here. And I'm going to go ahead and force them to retrieve policies. I know there's that client notification feature, but the clients haven't been running long enough to register with that. It takes 10 minutes after a client gets booted up before it registers with the client notification feature. So I'm just going to manually pull policies on my domain controller. And then let me go over here to my Windows 7 client. And let's do the same thing. And then I'll show you how this auto client upgrade feature works. It's really cool. I like this as a way of getting clients upgraded. In essence, what it does is it creates a policy to all systems, and all of your clients in all systems, when they retrieve policies, they're told to perform an auto client upgrade. And that's done through scheduled task. So scheduled task has to be enabled in your environment. And let's see if it got the policy yet. So go to Task Schedule Library, Microsoft, Configuration Manager. Okay, it's not there yet. So let me go back and retrieve policies again. I may have pulled policies too soon. It takes it a couple of moments before the policy provider has completed the policy to turn on auto client upgrade. And I'm sure then this guy probably doesn't have it yet on the domain controller. I may have to pull policies on him again. Nope, this one got it. Okay. So my domain controller has it. And in this case, you remember we gave it a deadline of 7 days. This one shows the 17th. So 6 days from now at 9:26 p.m. is when it decided it's going to do its check to do its upgrade. I'm going to go ahead and launch him off right now. And if we do a task manager, you see CCM setup is running right now. So CCM setup is running to upgrade that client. I just force it early instead of waiting. And let's see if Windows 7, it's possible I have the wrong snapshot loaded, so it may not have correct configuration. Oh, there, okay, there it was. Client upgrade task. And this guy picked, oops, wrong spot. He also picked the 17th, but 1:29 p.m. Normally, I'll get 2 different days over that 7-day time period. But the thing is, this is a random time frame. The client picks the date and time of when it wants to check to do the upgrade. You could still perform client upgrades through any other method. This is just going to check and make sure that it's been done at that deadline. So now you can see CCM setup is running on my Windows 7 client as well. So this will get all your clients upgraded in a nice, efficient manner. You give it the deadline, and it will spread out the load over that time frame that you give it. So very, very cool method. Okay, just got a few minutes left. So let's go ahead and talk about keeping Config Manager up to date. So I mentioned this in Tuesday's webinar on the updates and servicing feature. So once you've gotten upgraded or migrated to Configuration Manager, the current version, current branch 15.11, it is essentially self-updating, what that means is the updates and servicing feature is going to automatically find new updates to Configuration Manager, which you know today as cumulative updates and service packs. It's going to automatically find them, download them, and then publish them to your admin console. You then get to choose which updates you want to go, which update packages they're called, that you want to go ahead and deploy. And you just walk through a wizard and tell it if you want to test clients in pre-production mode or just in production mode, and away you go. It's got in-console monitoring to keep you up to date. So I can't demonstrate that for you because of the fact there aren't any. My Windows 7 client is still working, and my domain controller is still working. But where you would go would be under Cloud Services. You would go to Updates and Servicing, and when there's any updates available, they'll appear here, and it'll tell you the build number, the version, and if it's available, you would just right-click and say Install Update Pack, walk through a wizard, and away it goes. The cool thing is it's self-notifying to you. It finds out about these updates through this telemetry data that gets sent up from your site to Microsoft, and then it will pull down any updates that are applicable to you. They don't install automatically, they just download automatically, and then you have the control over when they get installed. It does support disconnected site environments. So if you're one of those customers that doesn't have their configuration manager infrastructure on the internet, so no internet access, there's a command line tool you can run to collect your telemetry data, upload it to Microsoft, download any new updates, and then import those updates to ConfigMan console so you can go ahead and run them just as if it happened in online mode. Now you should expect updates to your production environment every 3 to 4 months. So Configuration Manager, this release came out the end of last year, so December of 2015. There'll be a new update possibly this month, maybe next month. So that'll be, again, in the 3 to 4 month time frame. So it's going to be very much like the Windows 10 servicing model, where if you're in the Insiders program, you'll get new updates on a weekly basis, maybe, certainly a monthly basis, and then new bills every so often for production. So same thing for Configuration Manager. You'll have production-ready updates that'll be applied via the Updates and Servicing feature. There's also technical preview releases that are out there right now. So you can download from the Microsoft Download Center Technical Preview 4, which is based out of November of last year. It's a different version of 15.11, almost the same as what I'm showing you here. And then there are builds for 15.12, 16.01, and there'll be a 16.02 coming out as well. So you'll have new technical preview updates that you can go ahead and view, test out, evaluate in a lab environment, not production, but lab, to get ready for new features, to provide feedback back to the product group about features that are available and coming. Okay, so I'll go back and look at those updates here in just a minute for you as far as those client upgrades and see if either of them get completed so we can verify. So just a quick session recap, then we'll jump into what questions we have. So upgrading from Configuration Manager 2012 releases is an easy process. Very much just like a service package you've done in the past. You just have to be upgrading from the everything but ConfigMan 2012 RTM, and you do an in-place upgrade. I showed you some additional things you want to do in there as far as preparation of your site, operating systems you got to get rid of or upgraded, test DB upgrade, and the prereq checker and inbox backlog stuff. So hopefully that helped out with your future needs. So I'd recommend you follow the sample procedure that I discussed for you. And again, this session is being recorded, so the webinar will be posted up on our Vimeo channel by the end of the week, hopefully, if not early next week. And you should be able to download it and get those steps out. Start at the top of your hierarchy and work your way down through all your child sites if you have any. Now, migration scenario, you have to migrate. It's not can. Well, you can migrate from ConfigMan 2007 Service Pack 2, but you have to do your migration from there. You can't do it in-place upgrade. You can also migrate doing a side-by-side from ConfigMan 2012 Service Pack 2 or ConfigMan 2012 R2 Service Pack 1 if you want to do a side-by-side instead of a in-place upgrade. I would highly recommend an in-place upgrade. It works really well. But if you one that wants to swap hardware, operating systems, whatever, you can do a side-by-side migration. You can also migrate from ConfigMan to ConfigMan. So again, in other words, 15.11 in a lab to 15.11 in a production environment. Okay, kind of next steps. So if any of you wanted the recording from Tuesday's webinar on what's new in System Center Configuration Manager, you just go to vimeo.com/Team Cyrison, and you can search and find all our webinars up there. That is a link to that specific one that I did on Tuesday. So vimeo.com/154896771, and you'll be able to get to that What's New in ConfigMan webinar. This one is being recorded, and again, it will be posted up there with obviously a different link to it. soon, possibly today, tomorrow. So look for some additional configuration manager apps coming soon from Cyrus. I'm got an email from Dev with the next version of an app we're working on that we want to release. So I'll test that out a little bit later on this morning, and hopefully that one's ready to roll fairly soon. We also have plans on an updated version of that very popular remote manage app. So some new things we want to do there. So look forward to that in the coming month. And then if you need any help with your deployment of Configuration Manager or upgrade or migration to it, let us know at team@cyruson.com or go to our website and we can help you out, whether it's us helping you with that work specifically or pointing you to one of our partners who can help you out with that integration work as necessary. So let's go look and see where let's go look at our upgrades and see if my domain controller, yep, the domain controller is done. So let's see if he's reported in. And now if I go ahead and hit refresh, this task is going to go away because of the fact it's validated that task has been run. And now that client upgrade task is no longer visible in my environment. So that's how that auto client upgrade feature works. Now let's go, the Windows 7 client may not be done yet. Oops, that's my domain controller. And let's go to Windows 7, and he's still running CCM setup. So when he's all done and then it refreshes, that task will go away on him. But now on my site server, if I go back to that report, if I left it running, if the client has reported in, it should go from, this one should go away because he was my only other R2 SP1 client. So that one should come down here. So these two should now be combined as an 8325. So let me go ahead and click Run Report or View Report. And if the heartbeat DDR has been sent in and processed yet, which I would expect it would have by now. Okay, so yep, and you can see that we're upgraded now, and you see the domain controller and primary are now listed as 8325 clients. So that's a great way of getting your clients upgraded to new builds of software. So with that, let's go ahead and jump over to Q&A. If you guys, I see there's a few questions in the queue now. If you have any other questions you want to ask, go ahead and punch them in there, and I'll go ahead and do my best to answer them for you. What are the minimum server and SQL requirements for the new version of Configuration Manager from Mark? This was asked long ago, so I assume by now you got that, but it's Windows Server 2008. Windows Server 2008 R2, Windows Server 2012 and 2012 R2, and the SQL Server, there was still SQL 2008 R2, SP3, and beyond that were supported. So that link that I had in my slides, if I back up here, we had this link in here, and if I launch that guy off, see if it'll pop up for us. That's to the deprecated features. It will show you what's deprecated, and there's also the getting started and supported configurations doc that will show you what's necessary and what's supported. Okay, and Kyle signed up but missed the webinar Tuesday. When will that recording be emailed out? I don't know what they do as far as emailing out, but it's certainly on that link that I showed you. So that link is there in that slide. And I'll go back there in just 1 second. So right now it's popping up with the deprecated features, I believe is where that link was. Yep, removed and deprecated features. So here it shows you for Configuration Manager, and here you can see in the docs it says Configuration Manager current branch. So that means the 15.11 release right now. And it tells you System Health Validator and out-of-band service points support's been removed. Windows Server 2008 support ends with the first update released after the end of this calendar year. And same thing for Windows Server. And then client operating systems, XP, Vista, no longer supported. And SQL Server versions, SQL Server 2008 is no longer supported. SQL 2008 R2 is currently supported, but again, it will be gone soon. All right. Why does the console title screen after the upgrade still show 2012 R2? Oh, okay. I know what you mean there. That's Willie's question. So let me switch back over to my, let me go. That's a report. So I think you mean right up here. And if that's what you mean, that's because that's when I install my site, that's actually what I named it. And I do that on purpose so I can show people that it's not a good idea to put versions in your site name. So you're installing a site, it asks you for your 3-letter site code, and I used obviously CIR is my 3-letter digit site code. And then you're given a site name, and it shows, I put in Cyrus and Demo Configuration Manager 2012 R2 primary site. And I do that to show you that it's not a good idea to do that, because I've now just upgraded to vNext 1511. It's no longer 2012, but the site name does not change. So you definitely do not want to do that at all. So yeah, but if you do the help about, then there's no reference here to the 2012. Yeah, that's just a thing I do so I can show people that, and that you don't want to do that. Willie's also asking, when will SQL Server 2016 be supported? Well, once that operating system has released, then the product group will do their final testing. They're not going to, they have to wait until the product has hit RTM so that they know that the final bits are there, so that nothing gets changed in the operating system, so that we are not supporting a pre-release version and then something happens in the RTM that breaks something in our end of things. So I'm going to go ahead and just put over here on DDM log. I'm not going to open it up, but just see DDM 910. Ooh, it may have updated. What I'm looking, just looking here, my Windows 7 client may have. Let's see if it. Yeah, my Windows 7 client may have finished updating. So we can go here and run this report and see if this now, do a view report and see if it adds a third client in here. Yep, so client 7 now has been upgraded. So I've got 3 of my 5 clients upgraded. Those are the only 3 that are online. The other 2 haven't started the images. So I've got all my clients upgraded now. All right, after upgrade, do we need to upgrade boot images or recreate, etc.? From Darren. Yeah, you will want to do that. You'll want to upgrade your boot images to have the new 80K. Now, with that said, you are allowed to maintain down-level boot images. So if you want to just work with Windows 7 through Windows 8.1, you can go ahead and maintain your down-level boot images, but it is going to create new boot images for you based on the Windows 10 80K. But you can import down-level boot images. But yeah, you would want to go ahead and do that. If upgrade from 2012 R2 with 80K 8.1 originally installed, yes. So yeah, it is going to install or require 80K 10, so it's going to create boot images for the Windows 10 80K. So that will support Windows 7 deployments all the way up through Windows 10 deployments. But yes, you would have to have updated boot images. Willie's asking, the software requirements didn't show SQL Server 2012 SB1 is being supported. Okay, so yeah, what I showed you, Willie, was just the deprecated features document, not the supported configurations document. So if I go ahead and we go back to that link, that link was just to what's no longer supported or what is going to be deprecated in a short time frame. There is a different document there on the website, which is the supported configurations doc, and that will show you the specific versions of the OS and SQL Server that are supported. I was just pointing out that deprecated features to show you what is no longer supported that you may have in place. So that is a different document. So if we go over here, this is the doc that we had, and now if we just go to System Center Configuration Manager, and then getting ready, or get ready, and then supported configurations. And then that loads the supported configurations, and then here's support for SQL Server versions. So this gives you your hardware and software requirements. And you're talking about SQL 2012 SP1. So here's your SQL 2012, and it is SP2 is a supported version. So if my slide said SP1, that would have been a typo. And they may have changed things after the fact, because I created that on prior to the RTM, and I guess maybe I had not updated it. But I'll go ahead and verify that, and if it is, I'll go ahead and update that to SP2. But I thought my slide had Yeah, SQL 2012 SP2 is what my slide said. So it was SQL 2014 SP1. All right. It's okay. So SP1 is not supported then. That is correct. So looking at the supported configurations doc here, it is SQL 2012 SP2 is the minimum for the SQL Server for your primary site database. So correct. Yeah, so your supported configurations document, which is right here, is your go-to guide for what versions of the operating system, for hardware, for SQL Server, for additional operating system components that you need for any different release. Now, this one obviously is specific to Configuration Manager, but there's also docs for 2007 and there's docs for 2012 releases. Okay, with that, I see no more questions in the queue. Oops, oh, take that back. Darren, do distribution points automatically get upgraded? So one primary site with multiple DPs, no CAS or secondary sites. Yes, when you do an upgrade, all site system components and site system roles get upgraded automatically. Now, obviously, if you have a lot of distribution points, which a single site can support up to 2,250 distribution points, that can take a long time to get all those upgraded. But it will go ahead and cruise through an upgrade process of your distribution points, your remote site, your management points, SQL servers, and software update points, and so on. So all site system roles will get upgraded automatically. Now, remote admin consoles do not. That's why I had that pointed in the doc there, or not in the doc, in my right here in my slide, upgrade remote consoles. You do have to do those manually. Your site server version will get upgraded automatically, but your remote consoles you'll have to upgrade on your own. All right, so we're again, we're 16 minutes past our end time, and I know a bunch of people had to drop out already. I do thank you all very much for attending. I will stop the recording here in just a moment, and which I probably should have stopped before the Q&A, but anyway. If they want, they can chop that off. I will hang out for a few more minutes if people want to ask more questions online, that's fine. Otherwise, it was great to have you all here. Hopefully you'll learn something. Look for more webinars coming from us. I'm going to have another one, I know, on some of the new ConfigMan apps as we get closer to the release of those. And I'm hoping they'll be able to do a webinar on this updates and servicing feature so I can show you that once we have an update available for the RTM of Configuration Manager. So look for more webinars coming in the future, and I know you guys get emails about those. Otherwise, you can always go up to the cyruson.com site and view all the information up there. With that, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording, and again, I will hang in there for a moment to see if there's any other questions that you guys might have. Thanks all for attending, and again, I'll stop recording and stop the webinar in a couple more minutes when questions stop. Thanks all.